What's up, everybody?
Hello.
Man, it is about to be the summertime. Like, it is
yes,
summertime.
Yes. I already have the summer haze setting in.
I'm
already, I don't know if it's the tidal wave of activity, the blur of blessing that is about to happen.
Yeah.
But it's here.
Yeah.
And it feels like it's already here.
It is. Okay, let me ask you this. When you hear the word summertime, like, I know this is going to date us, but do you still hear Jazzy Jeff and Will Smith, like, song Summertime? Is that getting your head, or is it just me?
I think that's just you. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm white, and so
that was a crossover song.
I was not allowed to listen. We didn't have MTV in my home, so cable was of the devil.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, yeah. So, it was actually a great song.
I do know the song. I'm totally kidding. I do know completely.
I know you did, but that's okay. Listen,
yeah.
People watch they watch and listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
They know you knew the song. But guys, listen, it is summertime, and we've heard from you, as a lot of you love listening to the podcast, but you've said, hey man, the summertime, it gets a little bit crazy. So because we've heard from you, we have a cool announcement that we want to share with you.
Every other week we'll be doing the Chasing Elephants podcast because of the summer schedule. So for the next few months, every other week, which means right after this next episode drops, you'll hear from us in a couple of weeks. We're going to keep cranking out incredible content. Absolutely. We're going to interview some of the amazing speakers and communicators and thought leaders that are going to be with us at Student Leadership University this summer.
Yeah.
We can't wait to bring those conversations to you. We hope you have an incredible day, an incredible summer, and until we meet again, wander well and shine like stars.
Take care, guys. Welcome to another episode of our Chasing Elephants podcast. I am Jeff Wallace, as always. I never stop being Jeff Wallace. And today, man, I got a special guest that I'm going to introduce to you in a moment. And I asked my brother Brent if he would give me a moment just to have a conversation with a dear brother of mine all by myself, so he's not monopolizing the conversation, because he'll ask all the good questions. And so I'm like, I have some questions too. Now, if you have been a part of our Youth Pastor Summit gathering, one of our many Youth Pastor Summit gatherings, you know that the only way that we're able to do Youth Pastor Summit in so many different cities is because of one very significant and important partnership, which is our friends at LifeWay Students. And LifeWay Students, for us, they're not just an organization that we partner with. For us, they're family. And there's so many incredible leaders that make up this incredible ministry and department and extension and arm of LifeWay as a whole, as it relates to student ministry. But there's one gentleman in particular, many, I'm not going to say that I don't like them all. I love them all. But there's one.
Yeah, we know.
We know. But there's one gentleman who is a part of the LifeWay Students team that we're going to have a great conversation with. And that is my brother, Chad. Chad, welcome, man, to Chasing Elephants, podcast. This is your first time being on the podcast.
This is it. Yeah, this is the maiden voyage. Hopefully this is the start of many more.
Yeah. So, I apologize.
Me and you could do our own spin-off.
We can.
What's an animal we would chase?
That's a great question.
Maybe we go to the ocean. You know what I mean?
Chasing dolphins. Because dolphins are relational. We're a relationship. We have a great relationship.
I'm telling you right now, the shirt of me and you on the back of a dolphin. I mean, I'm not. Listen. I don't know.
Oh man.
The problem is, I don't know if I'd buy a Lamborghini or a Ferrari off of how many those would sell.
They would sell a lot.
Yeah.
Just the thought of that,
Just jumping out.
Yeah.
You got sunset in the back.
Yeah.
Boy,
I love that, bro. We'll let Brent and Zach do their own.
Yeah, they can do
their own
right.
thing.
Me and you on the back of a dog.
Yeah,
I'm telling you right now, AI is ready to make that graphic.
Listen,
for me.
My God, I can only imagine his stuff. And so, well, brother, thank you so much. That's a great intro.
Yeah.
And so tell us, for our Chasing Elephant podcast, and for you, Chad, many of the people who are listening or watching on our YouTube channel, they know you obviously because our crowd and our audience and our people are your people.
Yeah.
And so, but just for those who may not know, because for this particular podcast, we have students.
Amazing.
student pastors, next gen pastors, some lead pastors, and volunteers and educators. So kind of the whole. Everybody we have at Youth Pastor Summit,
Right.
basically is on our Chasing Elephants podcast. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do specifically at LifeWay Students.
Yeah, my name's Chad Higgins. So work at LifeWay. I'm the senior manager of church equipping. So one of the things that LifeWay has done since really its inception is training.
Yeah.
So over 100 years ago, when LifeWay was still the Sunday school board,
Yeah.
and we think of even Sunday school as being this thing that's been around. Basically Jesus was starting some Sunday school.
Right.
That's not at all the case,
yes,
right?
yes.
But church history, I mean, the Sunday school board, one of the key ways that the LifeWay was really successful in the early days is not just creating curriculum and resources, but providing training.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
our team at LifeWay kind of continues that mantle. And so I get to lead an amazing team of people in each of ministry areas
Okay.
that we refer to as specialists.
Okay.
So we've got adult ministry specialists, women's ministry specialists, kids specialists, student specialists, in each of these areas that do trainings all across the country, and providing kind of those training type resources.
Yeah.
And so I get to lead that amazing team.
So good.
And so they're incredible individuals.
Yeah.
That basically I think I'm just there to make sure that their receipts get turned in on time. And be like, hey, you spent a little too much on travel.
Yeah.
So,
Everybody loves those conversations.
so I get to be that guy.
Yeah.
No, but man, it's just a really cool team. And so we want to serve each of our individual publishing sides well. So not only are we doing training,
Okay.
part of our job too is really to help LifeWay be to provide an ear.
Oh, wow.
So as our people are consistently meeting with church leaders,
Yeah.
we're also trying to figure out, like, how do we create a really good feedback loop?
Yeah.
Because as you guys know,
Yeah.
man, ministry is very different all across the country. And it would be so easy for LifeWay, who a lot of our writers are located in the Nashville area,
Yeah.
to just write resources for Nashville, Tennessee, right? And so we always want to continue to be an ear
Yeah.
of going, man, here's what they're talking about in student ministry in California.
Yeah.
Here's what group leaders outside of Chicago are talking about in adult ministry.
Yeah.
And so we want to create really good feedback loops
Yeah.
as well internally. And so that's a lot for us.
So good. How do you guys, Chad, as you think about just the whole landscape of the country, you just made a good point of like not having writers who could just write for Nashville churches, because you're right, a Nashville church and a Southern California or even a Northern California church, 2-3 totally different perspectives, challenges, news. So how do you guys assess, okay, all right, as I'm listening to the ears, like I need to go and I need to listen to this group on the West Coast. I need to go here and listen to this group in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Like is there like a rhyme or reason of like how do y'all approach, doing that?
Yeah, so there is. So internally, though, even resources that we're creating different resources almost for either different people at places where they're at in their faith journey or kind of regionally. So that's one of the big reasons we don't have just like one ongoing like small group curriculum. We have multiple because we understand, and even sometimes in the same city, right?
Yeah.
Churches have different needs, different time periods to go, man, our people have been believers for a long time. They're wanting to dive a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
So this curriculum may be more designed for something like that. And even some of our like short-term titles are based off of some of that kind of stuff. And so, and then who we're writing or who we're asking to write them plays into that a little bit. Some of the data that we're trying to gather allows us to see like where are places in the country that, man, have a good amount of churches, but may not be utilizing some of our resources, things like that. But a lot of the training that we do isn't just like, where is or isn't buying our resources. Part of our mission and calling we feel like it is a little bit off the beaten path.
Yeah.
So in each of our ministry areas, we have these roundtable gatherings that are called essentials.
Yeah.
And so we strategically want to put them in areas that we would say not a lot of big conferences come to, for some of that listening for us, because that's a big feedback of those essentials. But there's also an arm for us too of being publishing arm of the Southern Baptist Convention is, man, we want to serve all of our churches.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's only so many of us to go around, but we're starting to look at it over a 5-year period of time.
Yeah.
Of going, man, what states have we not been to? How can we serve our local state leaders better? All of those type of things. And we want to try to eventually be able to like spread and cover a larger area. So.
And I don't want to jump ahead of our conversation, but I want to, you mentioned the essential gathering. We want to talk a little bit more about that. But how many essentials gatherings would you say is ideal for you guys to do annually? So, to do per year, because some people may be like, okay, great, as they learn more about, essentials, and then we're going to talk a little bit about youth ministry boosters and all that stuff. Some of our listeners may say, hey, Chad, I would love to do an essentials here and, wherever, so how many is ideal for you?
Yeah. So it depends a little bit on the area. When I say area, I mean department.
Got it. Okay.
So each of our departments have a different allotted budget to them. And so we utilize that phrase essentials kind of internally as these kind of the main focus, roundtable gathering, essentials of ministry teaching content. Some of our areas, some of the old way of doing essentials was they would actually bring people into Nashville, host some roundtable. COVID actually pushed us into the road a little bit.
Okay.
Because there were certain areas of the country that would allow gatherings and some wouldn't.
Right.
And so we were kind of in some of those areas during that time. But one of the things that we saw was that benefit, feedback. And you're also able, just on the financial side, we could hit multiple cities in a run.
Yeah.
Instead of just bringing everybody in, housing them, that kind of deal. So in our student kids area, we hit, in a given year, we'll do about 12 stops.
Okay. Wow.
In those areas. Adults, women's looks a little different. Women's ministry, they don't call them essentials, but they serve a lot of the same purpose. There's a lot of like large women gathering conferences. They've done these U-Lead conferences that are these like 1-day trainings on the front end of each of those, which allows us to kind of move those around, do some like essential type training at some of those.
Love that.
Adult ministry, they have some different names. We also will partner with some of our state partners. They'll bring us out. We'll do some of that same type of content. So even though essentials may be 12, that
For students,
when you start to take into their travel with state leader training, things like that they do, that my team's on the road around 20 or so times a year.
Cool.
So
cool.
They're doing a lot of amazingly cool stuff, and connecting in some ways.
Yeah. And you and our brother Zach, you guys, and correct me if I'm wrong when I use the word started or birthed, when I use that term, an incredible ministry / organization called Youth Ministry Boosters.
Yeah.
What was the thought behind it, and the kind of the evolution that you've seen? So my question is basically twofold. So what was, the purpose of creating it, and what did you guys want to accomplish, and how have you seen it evolve over the years?
We didn't start it with any purpose.
I love that.
So that's just how God works sometimes. So Zach and I, we were both student pastors in Oklahoma at the time.
Okay.
This would have been, I think this would have been somewhere in 2014.
Okay.
So Oklahoma Baptist at the time, they had this initiative called Reconnect Sunday School.
Okay.
Man, we were seeing baptism trends go down. People just not connected to the church. And there was some study done basically of a lot of our really healthy churches were doing small group and community really well.
Yeah.
And so Zach and myself had some pretty strong student ministry, small groups, interstate.
Yeah.
The leadership there basically reached out and they were like, hey, we're wanting to create these like ambassadors at each level to go around the state and do training. And they were like, we'll give you $50 and pay for your gas. And I'm like, my man, I'm in. You know what I mean? And
Hey man, you give a youth pastor $50 and some gas, you got him.
come on now. And so literally that's what it was. And so I was like, yeah, man, I thought I knew a lot of the youth ministers in Oklahoma. I was incorrect. I knew some of the full-time youth pastors in Oklahoma. And so the state, planned all these different trainings, through multiple months. And so they would basically send us to these small rural towns in Oklahoma to do these trainings. And, I'm expecting to show up, see my boys I see at camp. I just have a good time. We'll talk about how to do groups, all this kind of stuff. And, I'd go in Beaver, Oklahoma and do a training. And, there'd be like 4 dudes show up and, bivocational youth minister, all of these kinds of stuff, or a full-time guy, but in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And he may be the only student pastor in his rural town, which is a lot of America.
Yeah.
And so we go in for Saturday. I would do all this training of like recruit leaders and cast vision and all this kind of stuff, which was good content. But then you could you get to Q&A at the end and they're like, all right, well, I'm a welder for 55 hours a week.
Yeah.
And nobody else will do student ministry.
Come on, man.
And they're like, man, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I'm tired.
Yeah.
And I want to quit, but I know if I quit, nobody else is going to do it.
Right.
And dude, it felt like the book of James where like I'm rolling in being like, you guys stay well fed and well dressed. See you later, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, man, there's got to be more than just like practical ministry. I was like, these guys are isolated and alone.
That's good, man.
And here I am, like, because I had a group of 6 youth pastors in my town.
Yeah.
We gathered every week for coffee, and we're talking ministry. Like these were my brothers, and I started realizing like this is a element that satisfied community for me. At that point I hadn't drawn that conclusion yet. That's where I got.
Okay.
So me and Zach kind of knew each other at that point.
Okay. So he was in the 6.
No.
Okay.
He lived about an hour away from me.
Okay.
But we were basically being sent on either side of the state doing these trainings.
Yeah.
So I call Zach and I'm like, hey man, meet me for coffee.
Yeah.
I'm like, I got to hear what your experience is.
Yeah.
He had almost the exact same thing.
I love it.
And I'm like, what do we do?
Yeah.
And I was like, I just feel like the content we're doing is good. I was like, but these guys, they don't have any sort of connection or community.
Yeah.
And so at that time, like I had never even heard of like cohort or group or whatever. Podcasts were somewhat of a new thing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And Zach had 2 microphones. And so Zach said, literally, he goes, what if we create a weekly podcast that we'll just talk about the real like life of ministry?
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay. I was like, I will commit to you for 6 months.
Okay.
I will drive to your house every Friday because I had Friday off. I said, we'll record. We'll release an episode every Wednesday night at 9:00 because that's when these guys get done with their Wednesday night stuff. And so we called it After 9 to begin with. That was the start of it. After 9, we didn't even market it. It was just like, we're going to go to these trainings and we're going to tell these dudes.
Go check out After 9.
Well, literally, Wednesday night after 9, we're going to have an episode. We're going to talk directly to you.
Yeah.
And it was, all we talked about was stuff like, hey, nobody showed up tonight. How does that make you feel?
Wow.
And why does it make you feel that? Because I'll be honest, I think I was wrestling with some of that same stuff at that time, of going, dude, why is it why do I think different about my own self-worth?
Yeah.
Because an 11-year-old kid stopped coming to student ministry. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I was like, we've got to help these guys have that same conversation. Yeah. So literally it was like, we're going to drop an episode every Wednesday night.
Yeah, yeah.
Here's our email. I don't know if it was legal at the time. I had a Zoom account. And so I just was like, we just started putting these people in groups. We're like, you 6, you try to meet them. Here's my Zoom password. Yeah. Because we can't make them all.
Right.
So I just started, Zoom, I'm sorry. If I need to pay you something. Now that I work for LifeWay, I shouldn't say these things. This is before I work. LifeWay does not condone.
LifeWay, guys. This is free LifeWay. Yeah, but this is so good. This is so good.
Yeah, so I would give out my login and password, and they would host their little, because this was before people had Zoom fatigue and all that kind of deal. And so we basically just started creating little small groups of youth pastors that would meet online. Yeah. And there was no real structure to it at the beginning. It was just like, you guys commit to showing up.
Yeah.
We'd have a couple questions for them to talk about.
Yeah.
And so that really kind of birthed Youth Ministry Booster of just going,
wow,
let's try to actually give some structure to it. So we started building out more of like, okay, the first part of the meeting, we want you to talk about like some professional development. There's always like a hot seat element where they like, where it's like, hey man, here's what's going on in my ministry. We just want feedback.
Yeah.
We've started, as we got bigger, we could position guys of like similar sized churches.
Yeah. Yeah.
Led by a host that we trust that kind of knows that type of ministry. So we have groups that are more of like your rural student ministry, urban student ministry, multi-student ministry, because all of those have different issues and problems that they're dealing with.
And that's, by the way, Chad, what you're saying is not just germane to Oklahoma.
Right.
Like this is in really pretty much the majority of states. Right. You know, when you look around as far as the different demographics and the needs and the struggles. Sure. You know, like that question, I love the question, like, no one showed up today. Right. How does that make you feel?
Right.
That's not just germane to Oklahoma. These things are everywhere.
Right.
Stuff.
Well, and 9 o'clock, we used to joke about it. It was always, for a lot of youth ministers, they'll cope with a Taco Bell run.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's like Wednesday night when they're on their Taco Bell run, like you're either eating sad Taco Bell or it's celebratory Taco Bell.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Record night tonight. You know what I mean?
Nacho Bell Grande.
Right. Or then it's just a sad chalupa, you know? And so, but we wanted to kind of meet them there and talk about some of those type of things.
So good. And so man, 2014 is grown and evolved, and now, you know, Youth Ministry Boosters, now really for us, what we love about it, Chad, what you and Zach have become, when you take just the genesis of where it started, but what you become is just this safe place for full-time, part-time, bivocational, you know, volunteer youth pastors, like the gamut, where they can come and be equipped, trained, encouraged. Because I think the worst thing a youth pastor or youth leader feels is alone.
Sure.
You know, or they feel like this is just me. And because you don't have a community or cohort of other leaders, say, no, man, or no, sister, you know, this is not just you. This is me too. You know, you guys have created this safe place for people to really kind of connect.
Hopefully, right? I mean, that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Right? And that's always the hard part, man. Like any group is that. Like, I mean, ministers know, like, you have a great small group ministry. A lot of it depends on who's in that group and their commitment.
Yeah, that's fair.
All of those type of things. And we're continuing to try to do that. You know, one of the things, and I'm sorry if we step on toes here, but so some of the things that we found of like, some of the things that youth ministers complain the most about are also the things that they're really guilty of doing. And so, but I think we've got as a whole, as a culture of ministry, like we've got to start talking about those things.
Man.
And I think that that's part of being in a group, whether it's Booster or you've got your 6 guys in your local community, because we're proponents of both.
Yeah.
But I think you need a lot of people in your life as a minister.
Yeah.
That it's not even that you're allowed, because I think you're allowed in a lot of places.
Mm-hmm.
And we know it because we've seen friends walk down bad paths.
Yeah.
You've got to have people in your life that you yourself are willing to be vulnerable and actually be honest of going, okay, we got to talk about this because I'm not going to stay in it.
That's good, man.
And I think words like accountability are things that we as ministers not only need to teach, we got to live. And I think that we've got to talk about it more at a personal level for us before it's going to become something that's actually thriving in our ministry.
God, man, that's so good.
And so
so good.
I think having ministers that understand our context, but are a little bit, you know what I mean, like distant enough to where it's like, because that first step's hard.
Yeah, it is. That part.
It is. And I think people that be like, well, just do it. All right, you probably got some stuff you ain't willing to talk about.
Right.
Well, but I think having those friendships, and it takes time in developing them, those type of things, I think is really important. I think that's honestly where we're at in, if we're going to look at trajectory of booster and cohorts across LifeWay in general, I think we're at this place of going, okay, are we just going to continue to make groups? How do we really step on the gas and challenge ministers at a deeper level of, we're trying to help you as much as we can. And give us some time to help you actually connect with some people in here. That you can be vulnerable and honest with.
That's so good.
Because all the things that we want for people who come to our church, as ministers, it is hard to both be the shepherd and minister, and fully be transparent. Because,
that is true.
Because
that is so
there's a level. I mean, you see it in the early church, right? Even for like Peter and Paul, who are trying to figure out like this new gospel and how it, you know what I mean, fits and what they're able to eat and all these kind of things. And they're working that out as well. And we all know that there's different immaturities of believers. And so, you know, if one of your pastors start talking about their own struggle and all these kind of things, that can rock people. And so we've got to help create environments of people that understand their context of what it's like to be a minister, but is also like ready to step up and engage in those conversations. I just think the health of the church, and I think so often we start to think about health of the church before we even talk about health of the minister. And I think we've got to start talking about health of the minister as ministers, more than just like good mental health, which is great. There's spiritual health that I think we're not taking into account enough.
Dude, there is so much. And here's what I want to do. I want to pause. I want to say this while it's fresh on my mind, because, you know, the older you get, like Chad, you got to get it out with stuff. And here's what I want to say to all of you who are watching and listening. What Zach and Chad and our friends at LifeWay Students do as a whole, man, is so rich. And this conversation, I don't want to gloss over it. I think it's so important. And if you are, I'm maybe a little biased because I know the behind the scenes, and I know the heart of Chad, I know the heart of Zach, I know the heart of LifeWay Students. And so I would say, if these are some of the things that Chad is talking about right now, mental health issues, isolation of leaders, the fear of just kind of stepping into a place of being vulnerable and being held accountable. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do while again, it's fresh on my mind, is I want you to go ahead and, one, if you're not already following Youth Ministry Booster, you can do that. What's the handle for
Youth Ministry Booster?
Okay. And then obviously you want to follow LifeWay students. And then Chad, what about you if they're following you on?
I'm just Chad Higgins.
Chad.
I've been on there. I'm OG enough.
Oh, Jesus said this is his name. Yeah. And here's what I will ask is that especially through Booster, I'm going to ask that if this is a conversation that you want to go deeper in or you have more questions, that you connect with Chad and Zac. What I love about these guys is like they're not just these men and leaders who travel the country being on stages and all that stuff. They're super approachable. They're youth pastors who drove around Oklahoma for $50 and some gas because they care about youth leaders. And so I'm going to ask, because this conversation is so rich and so deep, and it is very specific to a lot of guys and ladies based on where they are in their ministry. Please, 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 here is a reason. This is the reason why I want to have Chad on outside, what I'm going to really talk about in a second. But this is the reason why I had Chad on is because he is a wealth of resource and a place of connection. So I hope you'll do that. And so I want to do that. But I also just really quickly, Chad, I want to, for the time that we have left, I want to kind of talk about this book that you and Zac just wrote called Define the Relationship. And it's really on parent ministry because I think outside of what we just talked about, which is a massive conversation for leaders, one of the struggles that youth pastors, youth leaders, volunteers, and even parents have, is this whole concept of parent ministry. And so this is a great new book that you and Zac wrote. Is talking about growing parent ministry that brings families and churches together. Mm-hmm. And so I love this, Define the Relationship. Tell us a little bit about this particular book.
Worst parent ministry title ever to be written. Right. Define relationship makes no sense until you actually read it.
Yeah. I love this.
So here's why even the title, because I think it helps. We worked with our research department. Mm-hmm. They wanted to do a research project specifically on parent ministry. They were like, what are questions to ask? And the phrase I hear a lot of people use is parents are the primary discipler of their teenager. Yeah. And I agree.
Yeah.
And there's been multiple studies over the years of, at first when that language was first created, most parents would see their pastor as a primary discipler of their teenager. More and more parents are realizing like that's their primary role. Mm-hmm. My question is, and this even goes beyond parent ministry, I think there are words that we have gotten so comfortable using that everybody just nods their head and they're like, we like that word. Yeah. Discipleship. Yep. Evangelism. Love it.
Yeah.
Community, like all of these kind of things.
Yeah.
And it's like, we've grown up around the church enough to know those are the words that we amen behind. Mm-hmm. But my question is, what's actually happening?
Yeah.
Right? And so even for parents that are like, primary disciple of my teenager, and I'm like, okay, well, what's happening in your home? Because I think discipleship is always happening.
Yeah.
We're constantly teaching those that are following us something.
Yeah.
But it may or may not be the teaching of Jesus.
Yeah.
And so I was going, well, let's really look under the hood of going, okay, what's happening at home? Mm-hmm. But then the other side of that, the youth minister side, it's like, what are we communicating as the expectation? Mm-hmm. What's the felt expectation?
Yeah, man.
It's good. And then like, because as I talked to a lot of youth ministers, there felt like there was this undertone of frustration.
Yeah.
Of like, man, we've tried to do stuff with parents.
But it's hard.
Yeah. Dude, I hosted a parent meeting and I had 2 parents show up.
And they're the parents of leaders who are already committed and already involved.
Or they're the homeschool family that know that they're already tuning in.
Yeah.
It's like, of course you and your 14 kids understand that.
Right.
And, or it's like, man, I send this parent email and I can look on MailChimp and none of them read it.
Yeah.
And so there's this frustration. Mm-hmm. And so we wanted to look at, man, what's the reality of that relationship between youth minister and the parent?
Yeah.
The parent and the kid.
Yeah.
What are the expectations? And so that's a little bit to define the relationship, because any new relationship, there's got to be clear communication of like, hey, what are we?
Let's define it.
Yeah. if we're going to say as a church, we want to partner with parents,
What does that mean?
what does that mean?
Yeah.
And like, what do parents actually want?
Yeah.
So the really encouraging thing for both sides, and our research team pointed out, they were like, so both sides said that they are willing and want to partner with each other, both the parents and the church, to the tune of both of them are around 95%.
Okay.
Which is super high.
Yeah.
So we researched over 1,000 parents and 1,000 youth workers.
Okay.
Or youth ministers. So over 95% of them said, yes, we want to partner. But when we start to get into asking, okay, parents of like, what has your church provided to partner? And the really staggering statistic that stands out, when asked of parents of the things that their church has provided, what percentage do you think has long-term effects? It was only 7%.
What?
Yes. So parents are going, hey, we want to partner.
Yeah.
And the parents that we surveyed, the vast majority of them really liked their student minister, thought they're doing a good job.
Interesting.
But when it got down to like, do you think what they're providing you is effective?
Yeah.
Most parents are saying no. And so, but it gets into like, what are we actually, what's the expectation, right? So like, if they're saying it's not effective, what are they thinking that their church is actually wanting them to do? And that's the part. They don't know.
That's
so like even down to like the highest percentage of like, what do you think when your church says that you're the primary discipler, what do you think that they're wanting you to do? This isn't like even what are you doing? This is just
that's the part that
right.
Yeah.
It's not even like what are you doing? What do you think your church would want you to do?
Yeah.
They can't answer that. Only 50% of them said, well, we think our church wants us to pray with our kid. Wow. Only 50. It's down in the 30s of teaching your kid to live out biblical principles.
Yeah.
And so, but then when it communicated expectation, because if we pull away our own emotions, and we look at it generally, what are the vast majority of churches asking of parents? It's just to get them to the building. And so even when we ask the parents of like, what is your church actually providing for, you know what I mean, you to grow deeper, it was just program after program after program.
That's wild.
And so, so like there's an expectation you're to be the discipler, but I'm a big believer that people disciple the way that they were discipled.
It's John Maxwell. We teach what we know, but we reproduce who we are.
Correct. It's really hard for people to create their own thing if they're not wired that way. And the vast majority of people have learned discipleship in a classroom-based model.
Yeah.
And so, and even sometimes we create parent resources that are somewhat like that. And so for a family who their parents never did that, their parents just got them to church and that was the goal. Yeah. And if your kid comes to church and doesn't complain too much about it, we're kind of winning.
Yeah.
Right? And that's not really at all very helpful.
I love that.
And so
so good.
I think for churches, I think moving forward, one, we want to lean on relationship. I think if we're going to talk big scale of church, I think far too many, which the vast majority of our churches across the country are medium to small size churches.
Yep.
You can know your people.
Yeah.
I say all the time, like, don't forget the strengths that you have.
Yeah.
Everybody's trying to be like somebody else and steal the model that they're be who you are. Dude, the most valuable and strong thing that most churches have is the ability to know everyone.
Yeah.
And that's what for a world that is so unbelievably disconnected, people want to be known.
Yeah.
And so the value of a small, medium-sized church to actually know your parents, and instead of casting a big vision, you know what I mean? The ability for a youth minister to plan, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to have coffee with every single parent in my ministry over this year period of time.
So good.
And to actually go, hey, how can I help you?
Yeah.
What's happening?
Yeah.
Like now we're partners in this. Now we're talking about a true expectation, like because the reality for most of us is we need that spark.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people know deep down what I should be doing.
Yeah.
But the ability to sit down with somebody who cares and goes, hey, how can I help you?
Yep.
Well, not a mom and dad to go,
Yeah.
man, we need to get in the Word.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those type of things.
Yeah, dude. Chad, here's what I would say. I think, and I love that. I don't want to give it all the way because then people won't go buy it. They'll just listen to what you say. I think what you said is so vital, and I think this is why this resource, ladies and gentlemen, is so important, is because we talk a lot about it, but we struggle with truly defining it. We know the what. Sure. We don't know the why.
Sure.
And so this book really helps. This book really helps create the why, or define the why, define the relationship. And so, how can people find the book? How can they find it, purchase it, all that good stuff?
So you can go to lifeway.com, define the relationship. They're also on Amazon as well. So anywhere you.
And have you and Zach? And not to put you on the spot, have y'all ever thought about this being a place where you can do training for, like, say, parent ministry training? If people wanted to do they want to bring you guys in to do some training based around the book, is that something that people can do?
Yes. I mean, they can ask all they want.
I'm just saying, it's a great book, but can they would tell me if they wanted to have you guys come in and talk deeper?
I think it would depend on what that looks like. I mean, we always want to be open and be led wherever God would take us on those type of things. I will say that even in the book, so training those type of things, we're definitely open. I know that we've been connecting with some of our state partners to do some specific trainings in state with, like, multiple church leaders, those type of things. We're definitely open to those kind of things. One of the things that I love in the book, so at the end of every chapter, there's actually, like, conversation guides to have. So, like, the first one is like a conversation with your senior leader about parent ministry. There's conversations in there with parents. There's even internal conversations that we need to have. There's a 6-month plan of how to implement better parent ministry inside of your church.
So good, man. Dude, thank you so much for coming. This is so good. And so, ladies and gentlemen, again, we'll make sure that we drop in the show notes the link to this resource. And again, on the booster side and the other leadership side, still, I would also encourage you to connect with my brother Chad and Zach and our friends at LifeWay Students, and make sure you go and pick up this resource, define the relationships, regardless of how Chad thinks the topic or title is cheesy. It's still a good book and stuff and everything, that.
And this really is not this, like, promotion thing for me. I think one of the things that's super helpful about what you guys do is exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like, you guys have structured a plan of how to help, like, student family, like, learn to grow deeper. Is exactly this.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, that's not this. I mean, they're listening. They like you guys already. But that's what I'm talking about. Most churches don't have a plan to be able to talk about, like, here's how we take both, you know what I mean, students and families deeper, those kind of things. And so, like, literally what I'm asking for is churches to go, hey, how do we develop 101?
Exactly.
Like, each of those type of things.
Yeah, man.
So,
well, brother, thank you so much for what you do. Thank you for being with us. And ladies, as always, continue to follow us at SLU Lead. You can follow my brother Brent Crow at Brent A. Crow, and myself at I Am Jeff Wallace. And until next time, please make sure you're very intentional about making sure every day you're doing the job you can to being the best version of yourself. God bless you, and we'll see you. Peace.